All right, we're really, this is your last call to make it to your seats, please. We do want to make sure we have a rich discussion too. And again, as we get ready for discussion two, I'm going to ask the discussion two panel members to come up. Okay. Any of the other panel two discussants? Okay, thank you. Okay, as we work our way in, I'll just recap the bridge between topic one and topic two. We had a very rich discussion on the complexity of FSD in the previous topic, and my colleagues have given me the head nod that we are getting very useful information on that complexity and on what matters to you and what's most significant to you, both in your sexual experiences and, as we've heard through your comments, regarding the distress that you feel with this. So as we move into topic two, we're going to focus on current approaches to treating FSD, again, with the particular focus on interest and arousal. We have touched upon some treatment issues already. It's unavoidable to have touched upon that in topic one because they're very difficult to, they're intertwined, very difficult to untangle. We hope to do that now, and as we go through our comments, it's going to be important that we can talk about symptoms on treatment versus off treatment, whatever that treatment is that you're going to be talking about. So we're looking at what you're currently doing to treat your condition or symptoms, how well those are addressing the most significant symptoms of your condition, how your treatment regimen has changed over time. I think we've gotten a sense of that. Any downsides. And really importantly, and we'll save quite a bit of time for this, is what would you look for in an ideal treatment for your condition? What symptoms would you most like to target, and what would you consider to be a meaningful improvement in the symptom? And with that, thinking about this question number 6, I know that we all know that specific treatments will be mentioned in the course of this discussion, and that is appropriate. We will do so. It's unavoidable to do so. However, as I mentioned in the ground rules up front, we don't want to focus. This is not a discussion on any particular treatment, the virtues of it, except to see what we can build upon to understand that common ground of drug development. What types of symptoms can treatments address? How meaningful that would be to you, and how you know those differences, both in terms of frequency, how many more times you experience desire, for example, as well as, I'm going to call it the quality of that desire or that arousal, the strength of it or the intensity of it. So as you think about your comments today, try to build in those things. But please don't focus on specific treatments just for the the sake of that treatment. I'm also going to ask again to when you're giving when it's your first time speaking in this topic as well, to always state your name and also disclose if you are associated with an organization that has an interest in FSD, if your travel has been sponsored, or if you have significant financial interest in drug development for FSD otherwise. Okay? So we have four panelists up front. Again, very similar to what we went through this morning. We're going to listen to these experiences shared, and then we'll move into the facilitated discussion on this topic. So without further ado, we will ask Judith to begin, and you just push your little red microphone and bring that microphone pretty close so we can hear.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd like again to thank Veritas for our travel arrangements. I'd like to thank Sarah for telling me to change good morning to good afternoon on my introduction. And I'm not affiliated with any other pharmaceutical company or drug company. So my name is Judith. I'm 66 years old, and I've been dealing with FSD on and off for 17 years. I would like to thank the FDA for their interest in the unmet needs of women. These are exclusively my own thoughts on this subject. I believe I'm entitled to and deserving of a meaningful, healthy sexual relationship, as are my daughter-in-laws and granddaughters. It is not solely the woman who is affected by this disorder, but her spouse, children, plus people in her social circles and workplace. I'm a breast cancer survivor. I was on HRT when diagnosed in 1996, electively put myself back on HRT after radiation treatment in 97. When the symptoms became a quality of life issue. In 2009, I was diagnosed again with breast cancer a second time, taken off HRT before a double mastectomy in 2010. Within 3 months, the great sex life I had previously enjoyed was gone. I felt angered, cheated when it became apparent that it had disappeared. Symptoms I experienced which had the most negative impacts on my life were fatigue, vaginal dryness, and painful intercourse. These symptoms continuously awakened me, which meant I averaged 45 minutes of sleep a night. I was exhausted. I did not have the energy for intercourse or for anything else. I became irritable. I didn't like living with myself, never mind how difficult it was for my husband. Mood swings were crazy. I was short-tempered, not pleasant to be around, contrary to my normal behavior, which is upbeat and positive. My libido was low. I knew I wanted to have sex, but I had no desire. I refrained. However, I loved my husband and wanted the closeness, the feeling of well-being that comes with a passionate, satisfying sexual relationship. My self-confidence plummeted. I felt I was less of a woman, as I no longer had the sexual appetite that I had previously experienced and enjoyed. I had no desire. It had completely vanished. The vaginal dryness was uncomfortable. Penetration was painful and stressful. Having sex was not at all appealing. The pain during intercourse was excruciating. Both my desire and interest were overshadowed by my fear of pain. My husband introduced me to Dr. Goldstein, who he had met at the VA. Diagnosis was made after initial interview, a series of blood tests, questionnaires, and a vaginal tour. I was told that my clitoris was now that of a 6-year-old and my hormone levels were almost non-existent. Here was a doctor who believed in something other than verbal therapy, something tangible, a plan that hopefully would restore my lost sex life. Treatment has been an ongoing process for the last 2.5 years. Initially, changes in my symptom would fluctuate from week to week, then month to month, depending upon regulation of my topical medications. I still record topical levels daily. Under Dr. Goldstein's strict monitoring, blood tests were initially done every 3 to 4 weeks, now every 8 to 12. My fatigue is gone, as well as the vaginal dryness. I produce sufficient lubrication. Desire has increased, and intercourse is no longer painful. I am once again experiencing both vaginal and clitoral orgasms. However, my desire is still not up to previous levels. Getting the physical body in order was paramount. Menopause and the aging process still managed to affect both my interests and desires therefore ongoing treatment is necessary. I tried various medications until we found which worked best. Currently, I'm on DHEA, progesterone, estradiol, and testosterone varibase, estrogel, and Testim. I've had sessions with a sex and physical therapist. I did need to adjust the testosterone dosage when acne worsened. Monitoring my blood test was followed by adjustments made to the estrogel, ensuring my count stayed within the required range for someone with my history of breast cancer. Downsides are the cost of the treatments not covered by insurance or Medicare, acne, some increase in facial and body hair. I believe treatments that deal specifically with women's low hormone levels and sexual dysfunction are crucial to our psychological and physical well-being. FDA-approved medicines that can target, improve, and enhance women's sexual functioning, plus be cost-effective, would be awesome. I personally, as well as all other women, need the FDA's help in finding a solution to FSD. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I need to thank Veritas Meetings, who was given a grant by Sprout, among others, for covering my basic travel expenses and making it possible for me to be here today. I learned in high school sex ed that a woman's sexual prime, so to speak, is in her 30s, yet here I am, age 30, and I have no sexual desire whatsoever. Things were very different in my 20s. I had an extremely healthy sexual appetite and a great relationship with my husband. Immediately following the birth of my first son, I noticed that I had not a lack of, but no libido. Still, I gave it time, thinking, well, maybe it's just because you had a baby and you're still healing. I actually waited a year and a half before finally booking an appointment with my family doctor at the request of my husband. I told my doctor, I need something for low libido. What do you have for me? His reply, there isn't anything for women with sexual dysfunction, but we can put you on an antidepressant in hopes that being in a generally better mood will help with your libido. So I left the office a bit confused. Why wasn't anything available to help me? Is it because I'm the only woman in the world dealing with this problem? Surely I must be missing something. I began taking Celexa regularly and saw no improvement. My mood was happy, yes, but I was happily not wanting sex. I went off of Celexa after 3 to 4 months of usage. I didn't have any negative side effects, but if I was only using it to help with my libido and it wasn't working, I had no need for it anymore. I looked at other areas of my life. Could stress be an issue? Maybe my diet, my weight, depression? No, because I eat organic fruits and vegetables. I maintain a healthy BMI. I exercise 4 to 5 days a week. I live a low-stress lifestyle, and I'm not depressed. I'm actually quite the opposite. The only thing to fix in my life is my low libido, which is negatively impacting my marriage. So I feel like my body has let me down. I feel like it's out of my control at this point. And I feel like I pulled a bait and switch with my poor husband, who is undoubtedly wondering where the old me has run off to. If there were a treatment available for my problem, I highly doubt I would care about the side effects of the drug. The pros would far outweigh the cons in this situation. The old me is what I'm after. I want to joke and laugh and flirt. I want to think about sex. I want to initiate sex. I want to have more of it. I want to be the woman my husband married not too long ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And next we'll go to Barbara.
Okay, I also want to thank Veritas for supplying the grant so that I could be here to speak to all of you, although I don't care how much it costs me, I'd be here to speak to all of you, believe me. Around 25 years ago, I noticed that my sexual desire was decreasing. Within a year, it was gone altogether. I felt dead inside, and although I had a wonderful marriage and loved my husband very much, I had no desire for sex. I felt shame and guilt and had no idea what was happening. On a rare occasion that we did have sex, it was done out of obligation rather than desire. I was embarrassed and reluctant to talk to anyone about it. When I finally summoned the courage to talk to my gynecologist about it, he listened, but said he has no solutions to offer. I researched this on my own and found that some people were using testosterone cream. I was able to try testosterone cream, and after several months, there was no change in desire. The only noticeable physical change was significant unwanted hair growth. So I discontinued the cream shortly thereafter. In 2011, I answered an ad for women experiencing low sexual desire. After being evaluated, I was diagnosed with HSDD and enrolled in a double-blind study conducted by Dr. Goldstein for a drug, Fibanzer. Initially, I had no change whatsoever in desire. After a few months, I was informed that I had been on the placebo and was asked if I would like to try the real thing. I said, yes, I couldn't say it loud enough. And within a couple of weeks, my feelings had changed dramatically. I had sexual feelings which I had not felt in many, many years. I was the one initiating sex, much to the surprise of my husband, and the experiences were very pleasurable. I also had no negative side effects. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Goldstein informed me that the drug had been pulled and the trials discontinued. I was devastated, to say the least. After 25 years, I had found something that worked, and then it was taken away. Without Fibanzer as an option, Dr. Goldstein tried a testosterone pellet off-label, which was inserted via a minor surgical procedure. This caused the same unwanted hair growth and now weight gain, but no change in desire to speak of. Had this worked, I would have consented to undergo this minor surgery every 6 months or however long it took, but it did not work. One benefit of this experience, that is, I am no longer afraid to talk about my condition with friends and family. It is amazing how many women of all ages I talk to that have some degree of HSDD and have been quietly seeking a solution. My husband and I are closer than ever now that he understands what HSDD is and how its effects have nothing to do with my feelings toward him. I conclude I'm a nurse. I teach at 3 local hospitals. I deal with many doctors. Since 2011, I have been talking about HSDD to the doctors taking my classes. So many have patients with HSDD, and after hearing my experiences, they're extremely interested in having a viable solution for them. I would like to see the FDA approve a treatment so women, like men, can have a solution for their most common form of sexual dysfunction and not have to go off-label or order who knows what from foreign countries. This disorder is real, and we need a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan. I am not affiliated with any organization who has paid for my trip here today, but I did contact the New View campaign this summer as a way to get my story out. And I heard about this meeting through the New View campaign. And I don't think I would have heard about this meeting if I hadn't made that call. I'm not currently engaged in the medical world around my condition, so I don't think I would have known about this meeting. I stopped having desire for sex about 2 years into my now 11-year partnership with my husband. Although I was alarmed, it wasn't until about 4 years later when I lost my orgasm that my attention was captured. Up to this point, I had a very narrow view of sexual desire, focusing mainly on physicality. I really thought I had lost something. I was resigned to the idea that sex was going to be a drag for the rest of my life. As I began my process, I went down some of the common paths of pathology, testing hormones, looking in the DSM, etc. My doctor told me my testosterone was on the low side of normal and that I could try experimenting with hormones. I told her I was working on relationship and that I wanted to try that first and not confuse drug therapy with relationship work. She stated she thought that was best, that I could try hormones down the road if I wanted to. Once I decided I didn't want to live a sexually repressed life, I started finding information that would be helpful to me. I picked up an old book by David Schnarch called Passionate Marriage that I had laying around. The book helped me to expand on my curiosity and explore my orientation towards sex and desire and find better questions. What is desire? Maybe it's not about a physical feeling. Maybe it's about something entirely different that exists outside the physical realm. My partner and I had done work on ourselves in a therapeutic setting, challenging individual issues that worked against us in relationship. We exposed a war between us sexually that had to do with the stereotypical ideas about men and women that we had personalized to each other. We would bring these ideas to the sexual relationship without verbalizing them, thus creating distance and disconnection. We learned through our study of the work by David Schnarch that our sexual problems were a co-created problem in our relationship, and that I wasn't the problem. Schnarch's approach helped change our thinking from pathological to relational. Once I was able to move out of feeling bad about my waning physical desire, I relaxed and started a powerful process of learning more deeply about love. I didn't recover physically desirous feelings prior to sex. I had originally thought this was the goal. I was wrong. What I do have is a deep desire for a relationship, and that is what drives my desire to be sexual with my husband. The physical experience changed for both of us. Our kiss became connected and deep. My orgasm came back with a quality I hadn't experienced before. Most importantly, we now know sex is relationship, and we enjoy the physical contact as a way to interact and be close and connected on a deep, intimate level. My partner and I differ in our physical experience of sex, but that is no longer threatening to either of us. Accepting our sexual differences has been part of the whole change. Today, when we have problems that arise sexually, instead of looking for something outside of the relationship for help, we go to what's going on in our life right now that could be affecting us. My therapist said that whatever is going on in the kitchen is going on in the bedroom. When I think about the downsides to my journey, we both were challenged along the way to stay with it. The material that arises is unpredictable, and where you are headed is unknown. What kept me going was the immediate and projected and far-reaching benefits. It literally changed the way we live, share space, and relate together on a daily basis. What I would look for in an ideal treatment for my lack of desire is a broader definition of normal sexuality for both sexes. I would appreciate a movement away from a culturally driven definition of normal that creates distress and anxiety in people when they don't think they are living up to an ideal. I think there are all kinds of reasons people don't relax sexually in their relationships, and it is much more complex than physical diagnosis and physical treatments. It is my personal opinion treatments that allow for sexual difference, account for the human waxing and waning of physical and sexual desire and arousal, and focus on relationship work in general would be most helpful. Where to go from there is more a question for each person than it is finding an answer for all. I feel grateful that there was no shortcut for me. I would never have evolved my consciousness to embrace this much more important understanding of life and love in relationship. And the work continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'll save clarifying questions until we get into the discussion, given the time. It goes without saying that we owe another round of applause to these women who have so eloquently shared their experiences. They really set, I think, a good foundation for our discussion. Again, I'm going to ask another show of hands. How many of you heard your experiences reflected in at least one of the panel comments, one of the panelists? Okay. Anyone whose experiences differs completely from what you heard? Okay, so it sounds like we've captured generally a sense of the range of experiences that we've had, both the successes and the failures with treatments and the wide range of perspectives. We're going to start with a polling question that will set the stage to understand what you here in the room and what you on the web have tried or are currently doing. So I guess we're only focusing on what you're currently doing. Okay, so what are you currently doing to treat your condition or its symptoms? And this is a long list, so I'll read it out for you. You can select all that apply. So if you've got your little clickers, please use them. Any prescription medications, and for that, let's also include investigational therapies. Over-the-counter products. And by investigational, if you participate in a clinical trial for a therapy. B, over-the-counter products. C, physical therapy, massage, or acupuncture. D, dietary supplement or diet changes. E, lifestyle changes such as exercise, avoiding stressful situations, etc. Behavioral therapies or couple sex therapy. Some other support group would be G. H, if you're doing something else that you don't think fits into one of these categories, or I, if you're not doing or taking any therapies of any kind. And you can select all that apply. Okay. Yes, it's unsurprising that that we get a range of many different things. The most prevalent here in the room being prescription medicines, followed closely by the over-the-counter products. We'll get into that a little bit. A quarter of you in the room say you're not doing or taking any therapies, which is interesting. We might follow up on that a little bit and get at your reasons why for that. On the web,
we have about 50% of the people not doing or taking any therapies. And
I'm sorry, 50%?
Yes, just about 50%. And then we also have about 36% incorporated lifestyle changes or are using over-the-counter products.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a lot to cover. Again, what we're looking for is really how these overall are changing in how you feel symptoms and in how they're addressing your overall need for therapies of any kind.
Excuse me, Sarah. Can we ask for clarification on the web as to how many patients are taking prescription?
Yeah, how many taking prescription?
Had 18% taking prescription medication.
Okay. So we'll begin with medical treatments, medical therapies. And we're actually going to start with investigational drugs. Barbara mentioned an investigational drug, Fibanzer, and we're wondering, first of all, how many of you here have taken an investigational drug, Fibanzer, or anything else that would like to share your experience with that? Okay, here.
Just want to know what symptoms.
So what we're really interested again is what noticeable changes are you feeling, and how do you know that those changed, what you perceive differently, and how meaningful those are to you?
I was on the Fibanzer trial, but I'm Amanda Ferris. As you know, the trial was stopped. I also had tried testosterone before that off-label. Unfortunately, I found that worked better in the gym for me than it did the bedroom. But when I was on Fibanzer, it did not take long, much like Barbara's experience. It took a few weeks before I noticed a dramatic difference. Going from no thoughts during the day and really no desire and no initiation to suddenly texting, and earlier when we were talking about visual clues and written things, I always say that it was like I would text him in the middle of the day and get a flutter, and I did not mean in my heart, in the middle of the day for no apparent reason. And frequently we would opt to skip dessert at dinner and go home. So I noticed an initial change very early on. I would say that I began initiating where I had not in a long time. And likewise, virtually no side effects whatsoever. So I was also devastated when that trial ended.
Any other comments? We're going to talk about testosterone and other hormone products in a little bit. Any other, one other investigational drug that you were, a trial that you were in to demonstrate how you saw changes in symptoms or did not? Okay, we have one in the back. Oh. Yes, we'll get a microphone to you. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Marcia Guess. I'm actually a physician who treats sexual dysfunction in some women. If you could just expand on your response and how long you used the therapy and how long you responded to the therapy and whether or not your symptoms changed while you were taking that therapy.
Thank you very much. As we go through, I think those are great follow-up questions for, as we go through any of these therapies to address. So there's no more comments. Let's move to testosterone products, because we heard two of you on the panel discuss those, and several of you have mentioned it this morning. There are different types of testosterone products, so I'm going to ask for some help on a show of hands just to see what the different types that we have. Christy, can I put you on the... a show of hands, please, for
For topical testosterone? Cream, gel?
Okay.
Okay, well, so let's start with FDA-approved topical products.
For men, yeah,
Yeah, for men.
that are used off-label.
What about for compounded testosterone products?
If you
Also
have, you can,
topical
if you have used it now, or if you're using it now or have used it.
Injections, testosterone injections? Okay. Testosterone pellets?
Okay. So we run the gamut in terms of experience with the testosterone products. We won't differentiate for the rest of our conversation, but we'll just take note that there is a wide variation. Would anyone like to follow up? We heard both, I'm going to say, a more successful and less successful experience up here. Would anyone like to follow up first with who feels that they're finding success with their testosterone product, and you want to explain that?
I'm Michelle King Robson, and I've not been paid to be here today. I suffered from a complete hysterectomy at the age of 42 and tanked, so my hormone levels were gone. And it took me 1 year and 9 doctors to figure out how to get well. And there were 2 things. One was estrogen, estradiol, and the other was testosterone cream. With those 2 things, it changed my life. And it actually caused me to start a company called empowerher.com, which is women's health online, because I almost didn't survive it. One of the side effects that I had, along with suffering from sexual dysfunction, was I had no brain function. My short-term memory was gone. I had joint pain. I had sleeplessness. All the things that women have talked about today, hot flashes, night sweats, you name it. This is so common on our site. It's so disturbing to see what women are faced with every single day. And we've got to make changes here, and I'm so happy that we're doing this today.
Anyone else over there?
Hi, I talked a little bit earlier, but I didn't tell you that I've been married to my husband for 33 years, and we have 10 children together. And yes, we do know what causes that. And I didn't enjoy it for about 30 years of our marriage. And I am so thankful that we went and had blood tests done and I was grateful to find out that my testosterone was in the basement. And I'm using a product called Axiron, which is topical, and I put it on under my arm. And it has helped me tremendously. I had not been having orgasms for a long, long time. And I not only can have an orgasm now, but I can have multiple orgasms during a sexual encounter with my husband, which makes him really happy too. It makes me happy. So I'm very thankful for that. And one thing that my husband has said about using these products to help you when you're having problems with, I was diagnosed with hypoactive sexual disorder. And one thing that is a good way to think about it is that people have hearing aids, they have eyeglasses to help them when their hearing is, or when their vision isn't good, and to treat this like it's some oddity, that it's that it's something we shouldn't look at as another tool that we can have is wrong. It's just another tool in our toolbox, and we can use therapy when we have problems. And yeah, I was a busy mom and needed to get more sleep, but the problem was actually physical with me. It wasn't a mental problem. So let's give women another tool that they can use to help enhance their ability to have a better sexual life with their husband or with their partner.
Thank you. Carmen, right?
Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up question? When did you first notice changes?
After taking the testosterone, it was within weeks.
Okay.
And it's been very steady, and it's been a lot better. It's very noticeable.
Thank you. Are there any on the other side? Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Hi, you probably know who I am. So,
Beverly.
my name's Beverly. I have experience with at least 4 or 5 of these medications, so I thought it might be beneficial to tell you. I started with Testim, topical medication prescribed for men. Unfortunately, I had to use so much of it that I smelled like a guy, and my girlfriends were attracted to me, which really wasn't appealing. That one had to go, because it didn't do anything to help my boyfriend be attracted to me, right? So we switched to Axiron under the arm. Great medication, felt the effects, major stomach upset, had to go off of that one. Then I went to testosterone injections in my thighs, and I learned to self-inject. Fascinating process, lots of bruising, lots of bleeding, lots of drama, but it worked. Unfortunately, I have an idiosyncratic body that metabolizes medication very quickly, so I went from once a week to twice a week, and I said, this isn't working anymore. Finally, I said, all right, find the pellet, we'll try that. It's a beautiful thing, it lasts a long time. It's minor in putting it in, but that's the one I've stuck with. I just thought it might be beneficial to hear all of those, different medications that are approved for men, but not for women, but that I've tried. And honestly, because I process medication so quickly, I could feel a difference within a very short period of time, like a week. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you very much. Okay. One more to see someone who has an opposite experience where it hasn't worked for them, or that the side effects were such that, or the downsides were such that you chose to not take the product anymore. We'll go right here. Oh, right there. Yep.
I'm Kelly, and I have done compounded testosterone and then Testim as well, and I didn't see any effect whatsoever. And at that point in time, and I didn't even see effect in the gym like the other lady. I was at least hoping to get something out of it. But at that point in time, stopped using that one. And then I had also been prescribed Wellbutrin at the beginning to see if that would maybe help me at least enjoy life. And it probably made me kinder to my children, but it still didn't give me any better desire. My children thought that I was a nicer mommy at that point in time, but no testosterone treatment has worked for me as far as those are concerned. And like the other, they smell and they're sticky, and you think, can it really make a difference? And for me, it didn't. So right now, I'm not doing anything, and it's just kind of stayed the same.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you, a couple of the folks, I just want to ask you a specific question, because a couple of the folks who have described success with testosterone commented on having had their testosterone blood levels checked.
Yes.
Are you diagnosed with low testosterone?
Yes, I was.
Thanks.
I want to make sure that we keep moving on here. So I'm going to move to other hormonal products that aren't testosterone. We heard some other mentions of those up here. If anyone would like to share your experiences with any of the other hormonal products. Okay, in the back there.
Hi, my name is Meg, and yes, Veritas paid for me to come here. I had a hysterectomy, did keep my ovaries, and once the menopause symptoms started coming along, I started taking HRT, a patch. And I can tell an amazing difference in not only sexual responsiveness, but in other areas of my life when I take it. And the doctors are all like, you can only take it for a few years. They're very interested in me weaning off of it. for whatever the side effects are. And I am very concerned about what am I going to do when they say that those years are up, because I mean that affects all areas of my life, including my at work, how well I can perform. I get the brain fog. I start crying, which I never cry at work. I mean, because I have 50 employees, and you can't cry in front of 50 employees. So I'm very, very concerned that what is there, what's on the horizon, not just for sexual responsiveness, but for the other areas in our lives. Because I mean, I'm a baby boomer. We're all working longer and longer. Women have these issues, and there needs to be some kinds of solutions, because we're productive way into our years that in the past you would have been retired. So that's definitely something that I'm interested in and
Thank you for
needs
sharing
to be
that
addressed.
perspective. Thank you. Let's move on. There was quite a few of you who talked about over-the-counter products. By the way, if we're not getting to the products that you take, please submit those to the docket, or if we can, maybe we'll have some time at the end. But I want to make sure we touch upon some of these. Do you have a comment, sir? Can we Pd5 inhibitors? Okay. Can we have a show of hands? How many have taken those off label? Viagra. Okay. Maybe you could clarify the question for me, please.
Pd5 inhibitors are medications like Viagra, Cialis, similar medications.
Okay. Show of hands. Okay, so a number of you have. Yeah. Yes, sure.
One of the physicians I was seeing recommended that I try Viagra. So I got a very tiny prescription, and I tried one pill, and the only thing that got swollen were my sinuses, and that was about it.
Well, we'll take one more. Let's see. What? We'll take one more over here.
Yes, Sharon Parrish from Miss Wish. Just backing up, I'd encourage you and urge you to separate the comments of naturally and surgically menopausal women about their treatments from those that are premenopausal, because their experience of hormonal treatments may be very different, and it will confuse the understanding of the patient experience if that's not separated more clearly as we go forward.
Great, okay. So maybe as we do go forward, if you feel comfortable saying at what side of the change you're on, that would be helpful for us. And then if you are writing in to expand upon your experiences in the docket, if you could similarly let us know that. As far as the over-the-counter products, we don't have to spend too much time, but I think it would be useful to understand what you're including in this. So would anyone like to just briefly mention what they included in B when they indicated it?
My name is Luann. I spoke before. Lubricants, obviously, so liquid silk is our favorite, but and I think that the use of lubricant isn't necessarily a thing that's associated with sexual problems. Some people use it just to enhance pleasure as a starting point, even when they're 20, and have plenty of their own natural lubrication to go around. Sexual toys and accessories, I guess, would perhaps fall into that category too.
Okay. Anyone who did not include lubricant? Okay. Okay, right here. You want?
Hi, my name is Cheryl, and I have tried over-the-counter Provestra and Steel Libido. None have worked for me, so.
We'll go to Amanda.
I'm Amanda, and likewise, I did actually order something off the internet one time. I don't even remember the name of it. That's how sad it is, but promised increased libido. That did not work. And my comment about lubricants, they're great as far as physically helping the process, but they do nothing for helping your desire.
Okay, I see some heads nodding to that. Let's talk about the, I'm going to put lifestyle changes and behavioral therapies or couple sex therapies and support groups kind of together as things that work on relationships or other things. And we did hear Susan explain that, and others have today. Does anyone have an experience with that that's different than what we've already heard that can expand upon this and like to talk about it? If it's worked for you or hasn't worked for you? Yeah.
It's not like a support group. Sorry, my name is Jeran, by the way, and I don't have any financial interests or affiliations. What I found useful was reading about my sexuality, because I had the view that I have to have penetration and achieve orgasm through penetration. And it was very stressing for me because this was not the case. And then I started reading about my anatomy, about women's pleasure centers, and I read Height Report from Sheer Height. And she was pointing out that a lot of women, participating in her research were not achieving orgasm through vaginal orgasm, through penetration. And then I started to problematize that view. And also I watched Orgasm Inc., which you should definitely watch. It's very informative. And then I started thinking about my sexuality, and I found how I can achieve pleasure. And this was not the way that I was learned before, that we see in the movies or that is taught to us. So I had this increased knowledge, which was reliable. It was accurate knowledge, and as Maria from the phone interview stated, it was not a knowledge from internet or movies or, I don't know, other stuff. I think it has changed my conceptualization of sexuality and my experiences a lot.
Jared, thank you. Okay. Yes, we'll have Sandy follow up.
Yeah, there actually is an FDA-approved medical device, name of which is escaping me at the moment. Yes, I want to know if anybody, that isn't one of the choices up there, and I'd like to know if folks have had experience with that.
Can we have a show of hands if you have currently or have tried using that device? Eros? Eros.
I believe it's for sexual arousal disorder and anorgasmia. I believe that's the indication.
Okay.
Eros is a device, and it's a device to encourage arousal in the vulva and the clitoris. And it used to be by prescription only. I don't know if it still is, and it used to cost around $500. And if you look at their website and you look at the shape of this device, it's very much like vibrator, different kind of vibrator.
Any other follow-up questions on medical treatments? Oh, okay. Yeah, we've...
Thank you. My name is Wayne Shields. I represent an association of health professionals, Association of Reproductive Health Professionals. The reason I'm commenting is not for a medical issue. It's reporting back what my folks tell me that they experience on the front lines. My folks basically are the ones who work with the clients. And what I hear back from them, and I hear this a lot, is that there isn't adequate response for this issue with their clients, and that there is indeed a subgroup of clients who simply need help with desire, the desire side of the equation. I agree with some of the folks earlier who mentioned that it's complicated and different for every individual, and that's true, but there is definitely a reported group of folks who, no matter what, have trouble with the desire side of the equation. So I would encourage us to pay attention to that group, even if they're not the majority.
Come here.
Hi, this is Natalie again. I wanted to make a comment about...
Can you hold the microphone closer?
About physical therapy, massage, and acupuncture, and so forth. I had, as I mentioned before, a great sex life with my partner. I didn't change anything. I had an IUD put in. took it out 6 weeks later. 1 month later, he was on a trip. He got back, and it was like a switch that went off. Everything was all of a sudden different. And I went to about 10 doctors in renowned hospitals, institutions, and everyone said it was in my head. I, throughout that year, tried. We went to couples therapy. We went to sex therapy. I had physical therapy, which was very invasive. Acupuncture. I even had a guy go in and do hysteroscopy and laparoscopy to see if he could see anything in the camera that was wrong with me, and it was perfectly normal. And I can talk about how it affected me and how depressed I was and how non-functional and just horrible it was. But I finally found, I was doing research, a book that got published 2 months earlier, and that's how I found my doctor. And he took the hormonal test and found that I had only 20% of what was normal for my age group of testosterone. And literally a week or two after I was treated, everything changed and I was fine again. So I just wanted to reiterate that everything else I tried didn't work.
Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any web comments on treatments, particularly those that we haven't had a chance to discuss yet?
We heard several treatment options that did not work for some of these participants, including bio-T pellet therapy, Testim. In terms of lifestyle changes, meditation did not work. And another participant commented that she was prescribed an antidepressant and that made her unable to reach orgasm.
Okay. We talked earlier in the afternoon about tracking condition as it changes over time. And there was a lot of difficulty in answering that question because it depends if you're on treatment, if the treatment has natural cycles and everything. And so I think it's useful to follow up on that question. Again, I'm going to pose a thought experiment. If you went to your doctor and he or she said, I'm going to start you on this new therapy, whatever therapy you're taking, whatever therapy you've taken, and I want you to track your symptoms. Given the therapies that you're currently taking, are there variability in those symptoms? And please, when you're answering the question, state which therapy you're on or the combination. But are you noticing changes over time in those therapies as you're on treatment? And if so, if you were asked to identify those treatments over time, what time period would you need to use, days, weeks, month, in order to kind of capture that variability as it changes? Hopefully that question made some sense. Any brave souls to try to first answer the question as I posed it? Okay. And then we'll go.
Michelle King Robson. I go every 3 months for testing, so I do blood work, and it does change. So I've been on hormone replacement therapy, the Climera patch specifically, and then I take testosterone twice a day that's compounded, 1/8 of a teaspoon in the morning and afternoon to keep the consistency and flow the same, because a lot of women go like this with their treatment therapies. But we test every 3 months, so we do it by symptom and also by blood work. So she wants to know both, because sometimes the blood work can be normal, but you're still having some of the symptoms. If I gain a little bit of weight, it can change. If I lose a little bit of weight, it can change. It really isn't a one-size-fits-all program, unfortunately. It's more dependent upon each individual woman as to what they need and what they're going to end up taking. So a lot of it is, it's changed over time. Over the past 10, 11 years, it's constantly changing and being tweaked. And that's how I stay well and healthy.
Okay. And that longer time period that you're talking about, you're talking 3-month time period that you revisit. Do you track in between those 3 months?
I'm always tracking.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to. I mean, you really do.
Anyone else? Someone else? We had, sorry, hands went up and we'll go to Sue.
Can we just go a little bit farther? When you said you're always tracking, how often do you track? And what are you tracking?
So I have to track on a daily basis because my medication changes up. One day I'll take one patch, the next day I'll take a different dosage. So it has to be tracked on a daily basis because of the differential in it, right? So, and the same with the testosterone cream too. You know, so every day there's a tracking system on my phone actually. And I always know when I've forgotten to take something, because I will definitely have a side effect or a symptom from it. I mean, it's almost immediate. You get to know your body so well.
And what type of effects are you tracking when are you writing down certain symptoms?
Yes, I'll write down certain. So, for example, I had heart palpitations, and without getting into great detail of it, I went into, because having heart palpitations and being 55 years old isn't really a good thing, since heart disease is the #1 killer of women, as we know. I wasn't getting enough estrogen. So when I went into the physician, when I went to the cardiologist, they wanted me to take less. They wanted me to go off the estrogen. And then when I went to my primary care physician who's taking care of me, she said, you need a little bit more. And it actually worked. The heart palpitations were gone. Same with joint pain. So joint pain traveled in my body. So if I if I wasn't taking the right amount, I'd get joint pain. Same with sexual function, libido, and brain function. Those are all pretty typical.
Thank you. Okay, we had a comment over here. Did you?
So I'm on a different testosterone. I'm on the pellet, and Sue, and the pellet lasts approximately 6 months, but it's individual for each person, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. I mean, I think we have a lot more similarities with men than people think about. The testosterone, for me, takes 4 to 6 weeks to kick in, and then the last 3 to 4 weeks of that 6-month period, it's pretty much gone. So I can tell by my symptomatology. I know that if I have symptoms right after the pellet's put in, that they're going to go away. On the other end, I don't recognize the symptoms until my HSDD is returned for a few weeks. So for me, while I don't track it on a piece of paper, it's about a 3 to 4 week recall, at which point I realize, oh, I need a new pellet, something like that. I would never, like on a daily basis, I don't think about it, but I'll think back, go, oh, I've been thinking about sex a lot lately. I guess the pellet's finally kicked in. It really takes a little longer for a recall for myself personally.
We have Amanda.
Sorry, Amanda. When I agree with what she was saying, I still think it's not for me. It was not a daily process. I don't need to think about it every day. I'm busy. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I work full time. I can't take the time to think, is my level low, or I'm going to have to go have something replaced. When I was on the Fibanzer trial, we had to fill out a daily diary, which was almost comical because, quite honestly, like I said, I'm a mother. I work full time. I don't think about sex 24/7. That's not what it's intended to do. But it's the lack of desire doesn't just go away one day and you take a pill the next and it returns. I mean, I personally don't believe this is a condition that's just going to get better and then you quit. I think it's something that we're going to live with. And so it's a long-term process. It's not a daily tracking. It's more of a weeks and months and future and everything. So it's not like physically you can take it one day and it turns on and then you don't have to take it the next day. It's either on or off.
Thank you. So I want to ask a question about, we've talked about symptoms and changing over time, and there's two concepts. There's the number of times that you might think of something or that something might happen, and then there's the intensity of that, or the strength of it, or the quality of it, however you think of it. When you're on these treatments and you're talking about how they affect you, are you thinking about both of those, or does one come to mind more, the number of them, or how do you conceptualize that difference when you're thinking about how well treatments work for you between the number of times, maybe a frequency with which something returns, or the intensity with which it returns? Yeah. So when you're thinking about how well treatments are working for you, do you think how do you conceptualize the difference between the number of times so that you think more often about something, or that you experience something with more intensity, maybe arousal with more intensity? Do you conceptualize that differently?
It's an interesting question. I heard Sue say her pellets last about 6 months. Sometimes mine last 2 months, sometimes they last 4 months. And I feel the effect right away. So my body just metabolizes it differently than hers. But about 3 weeks in to 4 weeks into the pellet, I think my testosterone level goes so high that I think about nothing but sex. I wake up every day thinking about sex. I go to bed every night thinking about sex. And like, okay, really, I would like a therapy that worked better, that was more even for me, because I end up becoming obsessed with this conversation, right? So I go from not being interested in it at all to not being able to think about anything but that. But then about 3 weeks later, I'm not thinking about it at all, and I'm wondering what happened to me. So the rise and fall definitely is more profound for me. And no, I don't keep a diary. I don't have to. I have a very clear recollection of when it starts and when it stops. But hopefully that helps.
Karen, anyone? We'll go with Karen here next.
I observe that there's a lot of variation in this one particular product that's being used. It's my understanding that it's off-label for women. Is that correct?
You're talking about
testosterone, whatever. It's off-label for women. Yes. I just observe how interesting it is that all these women have such a different experience with this product that is not FDA recommended for women, approved.
Your point has been noted. So we only, go ahead, Hilton.
I had one question. I was interested in hearing perspectives. It sounds like with treatments such as testosterone, we're talking about something that we take every day. And I was wondering what folks thought about intermittent treatments, or if you see this as a condition where you take something when you'd want to feel more desire as opposed to something you take every day. Does that make sense to anybody? I'm interested in hearing thoughts on that.
We'll go there first.
My name's Luann. It's funny you asked that because I was just having a thought, does this comment fit anywhere in this discussion? I've been using Testim on my calves for 12 years. And I just put a little bit on and rub my calves together while I'm brushing my teeth every morning, and that's sort of the 2-for-1 kind of thing. That's how I remember to do it every day. And then about this time a year ago, my husband was diagnosed with tongue cancer, and so there was a big change in our life and lots of surgeries and things changed, and so sex was not on our list of activities for a while. So I just backed off on my Testim, which was under my control, and I just let it ride until he was feeling back to a bit of a more normal interest in sexual things. So that's, I think, what you're asking. As life fluctuates, can you adjust your treatments? And I have. And so, is that what you're asking?
And even one step further, intermittently using medications from 1 week to the next or one day to the next, using or not using. Interested if that resonates with anyone or makes sense to anybody, or
if I know we're going on vacation to Hawaii, I'm usually gearing up the week before a little bit, pre 1 year ago. So yeah, so in anticipation, because testosterone isn't sort of like you put it on this morning and tonight you feel like, oh wow, it's a kicking in thing. For many people, it's like a 2-month process if they're particularly low. For people who kind of just want to ride the top of the wave, for whom it works, I think they can kind of pull back and forth on the throttle a little bit, based on what their plans are and what their life is like. But I think that what someone said over here, I think that, it was Karen, I think that there are 2 probable causes to sexual desire problems. Some of them have to do with testosterone, and some of them have to do with something else completely going on in the brain that's different. And when people don't get testosterone work, I think it's a whole different diagnosis. And frankly, I was really upset when I saw DSM-5 put arousal and interest in the same bullet. I was like, what are they thinking about? This is crazy, because they're 2 very different processes. So that was my take as a therapist and a patient. Did that answer your question? Okay.
We'll go with Catherine. Catherine, do you have an answer for this question?
I think so. What I was going to say was my sexual dysfunction isn't a physical issue. I have no trouble with orgasm. I have no trouble with any of the other signs. I haven't experienced the change, or whatever you're talking about. But I don't even think about sex. So for me, it's not like I'd want to just take a pill right before having sex with my husband. I want to feel it all the time. It's not just a physical thing. Like I thought Viagra was just for erectile dysfunction, where you take it if you know you're going to have sex. Maybe I'm thinking the wrong drug. I don't know. But this is something I want to experience all the time, 24/7. I want that part of my life back, because just thinking about sex, not having it, but even just thinking about it impacts the rest of me too. It makes me feel like a more sexual person, makes me feel like a woman. So I would be interested in not just taking something before having intercourse, or if I think I'm going to have intercourse, but taking something every day, knowing that those effects are going to last me 24/7, 365, you know.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to move on. We will have time for one caller. We have no callers? Okay. And we have more time to explore. Yeah. Okay. We have one more thought here. Okay, we'll go there first.
To answer your question, because I've had a complete hysterectomy and had my ovaries removed, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't be able to decide when I want to take something, right? Because I would just be going like this. I'd be roller coastering all over the place. So I need the consistency. And I think to Catherine's point is that, you know, what happened with me is I had no desire. Zero. It was gone. It was gone for a long time. And then when I finally got well, it came back. And when it came back, it was like, it was pretty remarkable, because I'd already made the decision that I was just going to live my life that way for the rest of my life at 42 years old. And that's what happens so many times. So I'm so thankful that there are options. I just wish that they were FDA approved and they were paid for by insurance. And that's one of the things that we face as women.
So we'll take two more comments. We'll go to Amanda, and then we'll come to you. Actually, we'll go to you first.
I wanted to echo what Catherine said. A lot of my patients don't look at this as I feel like chicken tonight, I don't feel like chicken tonight. The benefit that Catherine wants, that a lot of my patients want, they want to feel the desire all the time, is the converse is the distress that they feel. I have patients who will wake up and say, okay, it's been 5 days, it's been 10 days, I have to give my husband sex tonight. They have anxiety all day long. They stress about it, they plan it out, they're like, oh my God, I've got to do this, and there's not going to be orgasm, there's not going to be arousal, and I have to get the lubricant, and all of this. And it's because it doesn't come naturally. When they were in their teenage years, when they're in their 20s, it may have come naturally for them. And that loss of themselves and that constant preoccupation with what's wrong with me causes distress every day. So if they had an option to take a pill to relieve that distress, or take a medication rather, to relieve that distress, that would be huge for them. Whereas I don't have many patients that would say, I just want, one day I'll do something and, see what happens. Most of them want all the time.
We're going to come there, and then we'll come to you, Amanda.
I'm Jenny, and I think Veritas, but I would have come anyway. I had accepted the invitation. And I just don't see why we can't have both, the long-term and the instant. You have Viagra and Cialis. So I think women should have the option as well of having it both ways.
Thank you. And then right here, and then we have time for one more comment with Susan, and then we're going to have to wrap up.
So I think we're talking about three separate things, and I want to address the question about the intermittent use. It's my understanding from experience and from all the commercials that Viagra works on the spot and is a blood flow issue. And I think for most of us that have lack of desire and are distressed by it, it's not a blood flow issue. I mean, you can't just send blood down there and I'm going to all of a sudden want to have sex. It's not an issue of not being able to have sex. So what I want is to want it all the time, to her point over here. And Catherine's, I want to always desire my husband, and I don't want it to be situational. The testosterone comment. I understand that for some women it works, but I think she said it perfectly when it's designed for men. And so it's going to vary between women to women, and that's a very valid reason why on the package insert there's strong labels about men using testosterone staying away from their wife or their spouse for several hours because of the transfer over and the side effects that it can cause. I actually had some of those side effects, so the goal for me is still to have desire for men all of the time and for it to not cause distress and to just get that desire back. And the measuring a satisfying event, it goes back to what I said earlier. Women don't forget a sexually satisfying event, so I don't need to record that in a diary. I'm going to remember that for weeks to come.
We're going to go with Karen, and then we're going to have to wrap up our, Susan, I'm sorry, Susan. And then we're going to have to wrap up the discussion.
I just wanted to say that as I'm sitting here listening to this, I feel distressed. I feel distressed that we are looking for a drug to basically achieve a perfect sex life. You know, when I hear 365 days a week, I think that's a lofty goal. And I was just thinking that we're talking about distress, and I just had to say that. I feel distressed that we're looking for perfection when it comes to sex. And
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. With that, we're going to go with two more comments, and we're going to go with the woman in the orange who has had her hand up patiently, and then we'll come to you.
Hi, I think if you're talking about something that a woman could take instantaneously, then you're really saying that she is only a responsive sexual person versus having a subjective sexual desire. And I think that I am a sex therapist, and I feel like I've had a lot of success treating women without medication. But I'm here today because I believe that it also gives women a choice. I think that, yes, they can work up to it, they can have good erotic stimulation, they can have even a good experience, but having the choice to have desire coming into that experience is really erotic and wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, so briefly, your comment?
My name is Marta, and I'm here representing an organization, Red Hot Mamas, which is an educational company for menopausal women. And one of the things I'd like to touch on is a lot of the women that write in on the forum talk about it takes years for them to develop to the point where they're actually able to view it as a problem and to actually seek help, and how many doctors they've gone to that have said there are no options for you, I can't help you. And they're worried about their relationships, they're having a hard time with menopause anyway, but they have no libido and there's no outlet, nowhere for them to go. And it's not something you can talk about with your neighbor. So it's a very, very big problem, and we need a lot of choices, just like men have. And that way women can actually move their lives along. And it's a big deal for marriages and relationships. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
There are a lot of women talking about it.
Thank you. This has been a very rich discussion filled with many topics that we could spend days covering, and you spend so much of your time thinking about. So again, I'm going to reiterate, we want to hear from you. We only had this amount of time today to do so, but the docket is available. We do look at all the comments that come in. So please expand upon the thoughts or things that you wanted to expand upon that you heard today. Please do so. This portion of our discussion is now closing. Again, we thank you so much for sharing your very personal experiences and the courage it takes to come up here and do so. So another round of applause from everyone for these women. I'll put another reminder for the evaluation forms. They are at the registration table or will be floating around, so please fill those out. And now I will turn it over to Pujita, who is going to do the open public comment. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming here today, and we are now moving into the open public comment session. And for those of you who are not aware, the purpose of this session is to allow an opportunity for those who have not had a chance to speak on issues that are not related to our two main discussion topics. This is an opportunity for folks who are not patients or patient representatives to comment. Please keep in mind that we will not be responding to your comments, but they will be transcribed and be part of the public record. For the sake of transparency, we request that you disclose if you are affiliated with an organization that has an interest in drug development in FSD, or if your travel here today has been funded by an organization, or if you have significant financial interest in any pharmaceutical companies. If you do not have any such interest, you may state that for the record as well. So we have collected sign up before the meeting. We have 15 people signed up and about 30 minutes for this session. So please be respectful to your other colleagues here and other patients and stick to the 2-minute limit that we have. We have a timer up front. I have it here, and when the light turns from green to red over here, that means your time has ended, and I will then ask the next speaker to come to the mic. So I'll run through the order of speakers, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. So first we'll have Leonore Ortifer, Alessandra Hirsch, then Thea Caccioni, Sydney Wolf, Rebecca Holman, Judy Siegel, Ashlyn Gina, Kimberly McKay, Sally Greenberg, Deborah Arundel, Susan Scanton, I'll get back to you, sorry. Sue Goldstein, Amanda Pamsel, and then Michelle Robson. So first, could I have Leonore Ortifer to this mic, please? So we have 2 mics set up, one to the right and one to the left. So if Leonore could come to one of them, and then I'll have Alessandra Hirsch at the other one, ready for the next one.
Hi, so I'm Leonore Ortifer. I'm a New York psychologist and the founder of the New View campaign, which is a campaign to challenge medicalization. I've thrown my remarks out 12 times. I feel like this has been a surreal meeting. We are talking at cross purposes with each other, and it was very distressing that we sort of start off this meeting by saying we are committed to developing a drug, when in fact we can't even agree on what it's for. And we have an overrepresentation of people who are taking drugs paid by drug companies to come and talk about them. This is not the way to do science. There's nothing representative about what's going on here. We have a huge literature on psychoeducational, psychotherapeutic, self-learning, spiritual methods to understand sexuality. And what I hear here today is there are people who believe deeply in normality. And they had it, and they've lost it, and they want to go back to it. And then there's the rest of us who believe that the whole thing is a process going forward. It's not a medical model. There is no normal that you lost and you're going back to. It's the wrong way to look at it. We need more conversation. We don't need to move into drug trials.
Thank you. Next, Alessandra, and then could I get Thea to the mic, please? Thank you. I think you have to turn it on.
Hello. Okay. My name is Alessandra Hirsch. I have a master's degree in physiology from Georgetown University Medical Center, and I currently work as the project manager for Farmed Out, which is a program that educates healthcare professionals on pharmaceutical marketing practices and encourages evidence-based prescribing. I speak to you today as a young woman who is concerned about the implications of treating female sexual dysfunction with Fibanzer and other drugs, and I speak only for myself. When I mentioned to a male friend the idea that the FDA is sexist because it has not approved a female sexuality drug, whereas it has approved a bevy of similar drugs for men, he laughed at me and said, if a good female sex drug had been invented and the FDA were truly sexist, it would have been pushed through faster than aspirin. Perhaps my friend has a point. What could be more keen to the male interest than a drug that encourages women to have more sex? Let's take that implication a little bit further. I imagine myself in bed with my partner. He initiates a sexual encounter, which I rebuff. Today, because I have a kind and attentive partner, my refusal would not equal rejection, but merely a reflection on my mood that day. We would go to sleep. Years from now, with a drug that treats FSIAD on the market, he might say to me, it's okay that you're not in the mood. Why don't you just take your pill for that? What if I still refuse? Do I lose the right to say no because there is a pill to fix me? The scenario that I described seems to me like a very possible outcome, in addition to the already exhausting list of microaggressions that affect women daily. Here are some things that have helped me with periods of low libido. My boyfriend, switching boyfriends, chocolate, coffee, certain episodes of Grey's Anatomy, pornography, upgrading my vibrator, the phrase a little to the left, the phrase not so hard, the phrase I love you, reading 50 Shades of Grey, a removable shower head, getting tips from my girlfriends, back rubs, back scratches, a good night's sleep, an absence of judgment from my boyfriend, an absence of judgment from my friends, a defiance of judgment from society, and an acceptance of myself and the libido I came with.
Excuse me, Alessandra. Sorry, your 2 minutes is up.
That's okay. Thank you.
Could I please have Sydney Wolf to the stand to the right, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thea Caccioni. I have a PhD in the sociology of sexuality from the University of Warwick, UK, and I'm a professor at the University of Victoria, British Columbia. I would like to personally thank the FDA for, at this point, not approving a drug that is unsafe or ineffective. I think there have been enough drugs in the history of women's health, as we heard from Karen's comments today, that have been approved without enough research. A subtext of the discussion today is that many women's sexual difficulties are the side effects of drugs that have been approved for the treatment of other conditions. And yet we've also heard a lot about the off-label use of drugs which have not been approved for this reason, and that concerns me very much, as well as the various ways that they're being used out there in the world. I'd like to just express disappointment that this is a patient-centered hearing, and yet it seems as though it has been mainly people who have been sponsored by industry who have been able to afford to attend. I don't think it's truly representative, not to take away from your experiences. So just to conclude, I would like to say it seems as though the line between industry and patient perspectives is very thin.
Thank you. Sydney Wolf, and then could I have Rebecca Holloman to the mic on the left, please? Thank you. Go ahead.
Sid Wolf, the Health Research Group, don't have any financial conflicts of interest. Just one quick comment before the other three quick comments. One, no drugs have been approved for men or women for this purpose. The FDA took a strong position at a hearing last month in September that use of testosterone for a whole variety of things, including increased sexual desire, there was no evidence for it. I got involved in these issues about 10 years ago when I testified along with Dr. Ortifer at a hearing where they were considering the approval of the testosterone patch for women. The physician who reviewed the drug said, quote, the clinical significance of the increase with active treatment yielding on average an increase of only 5 to 6 points more than placebo on a score of 100 for sexual desire is unknown. More recently, in 2010, another drug, Fibanzer, which has been mentioned several times, was also turned down. And one of the reasons it was turned down, again, was that the placebo response rate was really quite high. And in an interesting article by someone who's been here and has spoken, Dr. Kingsburg, after this hearing and after the drug was turned down, she commented on the placebo effect. They can be explained by other more psychological factors. For example, women enrolled in these trials have a desire to improve their sex lives and take an active role in seeking help. Additionally, expectancies for enhanced sexual desire would increase a woman's perception of having desire. Frequent diary entries, which she opposed and which some people today were the sum and substance of at least one of the reasons why the placebo worked. And finally, before the microphone gets turned off, it is a very complicated issue. Everyone has agreed that it is. And since we're only about 30 miles from Baltimore, where H.L. Mencken was, the quote with Mencken, for every complicated problem, there's a simple solution, which is usually wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Rebecca, and then could I get Judy Siegel to the mic as well for after? Okay. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. Hi, my name is Rebecca Holloman. I'm a graduate student at Georgetown University, and I work as volunteer staff for Farmed Out, which is a Georgetown project that aims to encourage evidence-based prescribing. I have no financial conflicts of interest. I worry about the potential harms to women if we leave this issue solely in the hands of the medical community. Sex is complicated. Biological function cannot be isolated from physiological, psychological, and social factors. It would be a disservice to women to take this approach. The doctor's office can be an intimidating place for women to address concerns about their sexuality. Women are left vulnerable to messages designed to push a profit instead of to educate. Pills have a higher profit margin than education, but opting for the quick fix may cause more harm than good. In an article written by Grant Stoddard, he described his experience as having sex on Viagra. In it, he made the comment, "Penises are often referred to as tools," and that's exactly what mine felt like. A wood-like dildonic prosthesis that was being ridden with little emotional or physical input from me. The experience was strangely feminizing. For the first time, I was a passive partner during sex, without necessarily being turned on or even having my head in the game. Maybe we have already done men a disservice in focusing on medications to fix the machinery of sex, at the same time spreading the message that the body is the only part of them that matters. The emphasis on a medical fix is likely to prove more damaging than helpful to women in the long run. Medical technology is too easily manipulated a device. I can imagine the commercials already. He made you dinner, he bought you roses, don't you want to be able to respond? A pill or device on a market, or in a market with inadequate infrastructure to educate women about the non-medical components of arousal is dangerously open to abuse. Once again, women will become little more than the functions of their bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Judy, and then could I also get Ashleen to the mic? Thanks.
Hi, my name is Judy Siegel. As I mentioned before, I'm funded by the Social Science and Humanities Research Council. I'm a professor at the University of British Columbia, and my area of research is discourse, language, and persuasion in health and medicine. And so I do want to make another comment about some of the language that I've heard today. One of the words that has been missing has come up from time to time, but it hasn't been at the center of anything in terms of goals of treatment and endpoints, is the word pleasure. It seems to me that a lot of what I've heard about is, well, interest, arousal, orgasm, husbands, guilt, anxiety, wanting to be free of those, but I haven't heard a lot about pleasure. And it seems to me that if we don't talk about sexual pleasure in women as an endpoint of treatment, if there's going to be some kind of treatment, then that is, say, sexist, anti-feminist, in a way that I think not approving drugs that haven't been shown to be, safe and effective isn't sexist and anti-feminist that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next, we have Ashley, and then could I also get Kimberly to the mic?
Hi, my name is Coco Jervis. I'll be speaking on behalf of Ashlyn. I am the program director at the National Women's Health Network. The network talks to patients and others concerned about sexual problems to their Women's Health Voice Information Service. The Women's Health Information Service is supported by our members. We do not take any financial contributions from drug companies, medical device manufacturers, insurance companies, or any other interests that have a financial stake in the women's health decision making. The Women's Health Voice was launched in 1978 and has operated continuously since then. Women routinely contact us with questions about sexual problems. And the questions that they ask us are, is this normal? Are my sexual problems caused by something a medical professional did? Does the medical profession have anything to offer me? Does what is being offered work? And what are the risks and side effects of what's being offered? And are there alternatives? What we have found talking to women with concerns about sexual problems is that good answers do not exist to any of the questions women ask us. And on behalf of hundreds of women who have brought these questions to us via the Women's Health Voice, we want the FDA to know the following. Women want more information about what is normal, but not just what is heteronormative. They want to know about natural history studies of changes in sexuality, including desire, arousal, and a response with age and reproductive events. Women want more information that is currently available about the effectiveness of medical treatments, procedures, and medications on the desire and arousal and satisfaction. Then, of course, some women want to know what medical treatments are available. They want to know if treatments they've heard about are legitimate and stringently evaluated by the FDA. They want to know if medical treatments actually work and how well. They want information on about what exactly effective means. Women who contact us with questions about sexual problems want reliable information about the risks of side effects associated with medical treatments.
Thank you. Next we have Kimberly, and can I get Sally on the mic as well? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I am just representing myself. I view myself as a potential patient, as a premenopausal woman who has young children, and as a doctoral student. I understand fatigue, and I understand how that affects my own desire. But I am most concerned that any medication that is on the market be both safe and effective for its intended use. And I just wanted to mention how greatly I appreciate that the FDA is dedicated to both safety and true efficacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. So next we have Sally, and then could I also get Deborah?
Good afternoon.
Ready.
My name is Sally Greenberg. I'm Executive Director of the National Consumers League. We're the oldest consumer organization in the U.S., founded in 1899 by pioneering women during the Progressive Era who focused much of their work on healthcare and workplace protections for women and children. And they fought passionately for women's equality and fair treatment. More recently, NCL has been a champion for the safe use of medications and worked closely with the FDA on better medication adherence through our Script Your Future campaign. I'm here today because when it comes to sexual dysfunction treatments, and I'm going to talk really fast, it's clear that we have a gross gender imbalance in products approved for men versus women, with 26 new drugs either approved or marketed for different aspects of male sexual dysfunction, including erectile dysfunction, Peyronie's disease, loss of libido due to hypergonadism. There is nothing so far for women for women's most common form of sexual dysfunction, HSDD. And we have to ask the question, why? Viagra was approved for erectile dysfunction 16 years ago. It was fast-tracked at the FDA and reviewed in one 6-month cycle, despite a long list of adverse reactions, including very serious cardiovascular effects, especially if it's co-administered with other commonly used drugs. 16 years later, despite worthy efforts, women still do not have an FDA-approved safe and effective treatment for HSDD. This is what women end up doing. They go to the internet and they buy, I have 51 examples here of stuff on the internet that claims to provide increased libido for women. It is that these treatments are neither proven safe nor effective, and because the FDA has dragged its feet and failed to act and address this gender imbalance, we have women going and getting products that could hurt them and waste their money. So if we sound angry, if I sound angry, I am. And I think congratulate the FDA for doing this workshop here today, but we need to move beyond this. I'm cut off, so thank you for your time. You get the picture.
Thank you, Sally. We have Deborah ready to speak, and then could I get Susan right after her?
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Arundel with the American Sexual Health Association. Our organization was established in 1914 when women were largely considered vixens, vectors of infections, and maybe vamps. It's wonderful that we've come to the point where we can begin to talk about women having healthy sexual lives, that women have a right, perhaps, to desire, arousal, even pleasure. So we really appreciate that the FDA has today given organizations like mine and people like me an opportunity to hear from patients, which I have things that I have only read about. And what I've heard is despair, anxiety, loss of confidence, loss of self-worth, troubled relationships and families in crisis. And sexual health, we believe, is a basic human right. What we've heard is that women will try everything, including, I quote, some things I don't even remember the names of. And indeed, I do believe that for some women, chocolate, strawberries, and certain episodes of Grey's Anatomy can make a difference. But for many other women, that is simply not the case. We heard that for some women, a month in the Caribbean will not do the trick. Not being able to have sexual desire will only add to anxiety there. So I believe that sexual health is a basic human right, and those are the women for whom we ask the FDA to provide some options. We don't want a magic pill. We want an opportunity for those women and their providers to together figure out what's right for them and what might work. I believe that deeply buried in the Constitution, there must be a basic right to healthy sexuality. I'm going to go with the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, we have Susan, and after that, we'll have Beth.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Susan Scanlon. I'm Chair Emerita of the National Council of Women's Organizations, a coalition of 240 progressive women's groups representing 12 million American women. I'm also chair of Even the Score, a coalition of patients, providers, advocates, and practitioners who have come together to address the gender disparity in treatments for male versus female sexual dysfunction. There are 26 drugs approved for men and 0 for women. Up to 1 in 10 women, American women, suffer from FSIAD. That represents as many as 16 million women with no answer to this devastating condition. How pervasive is the problem? 75% of women patients here today are not from the Washington, D.C. area. They are from all over the country, and they need and deserve our help. And let me salute the women who came here and husbands who spoke. So courageous. We support medical treatment for FSIAD. We're tired of hearing that female sexual health is complex, as if there would be no answer if we didn't study it. Make no mistake, men are equally complex, and there's been no shortage of medications to address their sexual dysfunction. In 1960, the birth control pill precipitated a societal shift to recognize women's rights as reproductive beings. In 2014, let's shift to recognize women's rights as sexual beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Next, we have Beth and then Sue.
Hi, I'm Beth Battolino. I'm CEO of HealthyWomen.org, the leading not-for-profit consumer women's health organization who represents more than 5 million women annually that visit our website. And I want to share with you that the top 3 topics that trend the most, women's sexual health, it continues to be in the top 3. So we know that women are seeking information and want information and feel that they need to go to a lot of websites to find that information because it is an embarrassing topic for so many. I also want to share that we recently did a survey of over 1,000 women, and 81% of the women that took the survey said that their sexual health, their sexual relationships or lack of sexual relationships is very distressful in their relationship. And more than 53% of these women said that they've been living with this for more than a year. So it is time that we do something, and they have more options. I also want to share that Healthy Women will continue to provide women with credible, medically researched and vetted information. That's how we've remained in business for over 26 years. And I want to thank the FDA for commencing this panel. I think it's important, but more importantly, I really want to thank the real women and your real voices. How powerful and so nice to have your spouses here. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Next, we have Sue and then Amanda.
I'm Sue Goldstein. I'm a sexuality educator and a clinical researcher, and I'm here representing the everyday patient rather than the large societies. I've interviewed a great number of patients in my lifetime, first to write a book and then working with them for clinical research. And women are angry And I'm here to thank the FDA for bringing up this topic, for us being able to talk about it. As a sexuality educator, one of the messages I like to say is as long as we hide behind walls and we whisper about what we do, how can we expect everybody out in the community to be comfortable talking about sexual health? Women are afraid to talk to their physicians about their sexual health problems. And if they do, if they're told, go get a glass of wine, go away for the weekend, and they know that that's not the solution. Yes, you can say sex is complicated. The fact is, sex is multifactorial. It's multifactorial for women. It's multifactorial for men. And what we do is we do our best. And we've been able to come up with solutions for men, and I'm hoping that after this forum, the FDA will work with companies so that we can have solutions for women. But there are women out there who are angry because there's nothing for them, and then they're being told you can't have a choice. All we're asking is we're Americans. We have a choice whether we can choose abortion or not, so we don't have to go to the back rooms and get coat hangers into our cervixes to abort. We want a choice that if we want to have a biologic therapy in addition to or instead of physical therapy, sex therapy, we need a choice. All we're asking for is a choice. Nobody's telling anybody else they need to take a medication. We're just asking to make those options available. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next, we have Amanda, and then finally, Michelle Robson.
Thank you. I have a very healthy marriage, and we have a very open line of communication. We're not here looking for perfection, and Ben is not here to expect me to meet his demands. Instead, we're looking for a restoration of my sexual desire. As we age, we lose things. When we lose the ability to sleep, many of us take a sleep FDA-approved medication. Some choose not to treat. When we lose the ability to handle stress, some of us choose an anxiety medicine that the FDA has approved. Others choose not to. So why, when we lose our desire to have sex with our husbands, do we not have an FDA-approved option to choose from? I recognize and respect that some choose not to do that, and that's their choice. But as an educated professional woman who understands the risks and benefits associated with taking prescription medicine, I would appreciate having the chance to have an FDA-approved option to choose from and to allow me the opportunity to work with my physician in finding a solution to this problem. I've heard it said a lot today that it's complicated. It's really not. It's really not any more complicated than anything else that we lose.
And I just want to say that men have many options when it comes to sexual dysfunction. Women deserve to have some options too. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Michelle Robson.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today before the FDA. I have no affiliation, which I've already said, and I have no financial gain. My name is Michelle King Robson, and I am the founder of Empower.com. We have over 3.5 million women coming to our site every single month. What do we see? The top 5 is sexual health and relationships every single day, because we track this on a daily basis. I too suffered from sexual dysfunction. It's one of the reasons why I started the company. I see how women are silently suffering because that's what women do. We don't have options and choices. We need options and choices today. Without the option and choice that I had to go to compounding and to have an FDA-approved patch, I would not be standing in this room. I would not have created this company. I would not be helping millions of women around the world who are dealing with health issues. Women's health is underserved. It's very clear that it's very underserved, and it's got to change. We're no longer viewed as just vehicles. We're bearing children, and we're contributing to society and paying taxes as well. When I spoke to you in 2010, my story and the data was there, and the data hasn't changed, and it's now 2014. Generations of women have suffered in silence for far too long, and it's time for the FDA to act. Please act. Treatments and open doors for research and find more and better solutions, and to no longer say no. We deserve no less. Just say yes.
Thank you. That brings our session to the end, and I'd like to call Dr. Sandra Queter to the stand for our closing.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I recognize that we're 10 minutes before your opportunity to stand up and stretch. So I'm going to try and summarize what we heard today. And I hope you can bear with me because I'm looking at my little laptop screen. But I did try to divide my comments into a couple of areas, one of which is separated first by the two panels, and also acknowledging some of the general comments that were made. First, I want to thank you for all my colleagues here for being here and spending the day in a room that's sometimes a little dark and seats that are often a little uncomfortable, and in particular for expressing yourselves and a willingness to listen if you didn't express yourself to discussion about a topic that is sometimes a little uncomfortable. And if you have any doubt about that, I ask you to think back to the first panel that got up, and when Sarah got up and tried to generate some discussion, you could see people kind of shifting in their seats. There was a little silence, and people are thinking, "Oh my gosh, how are we going to fill this afternoon?" But quickly, you all rose to the occasion, and I'm really glad that you did. I found it very informative. I think I speak for my colleagues in that manner as well. We are not here to solve all the world's problems. That's way beyond any of our pay grades. But we are here to listen and to try and respond professionally and thoughtfully to concerns raised by patients who have conditions or concerns that you think we need to hear about, and you certainly outdid yourselves today in expressing that. I do want to acknowledge, and we heard this throughout comments peppered during the day and at the end in the open public hearing, that I want to acknowledge that there is a breadth of perspective on the issues that we discussed today. I would be gravely disappointed if there were not a breadth of perspective. And any time we at the agency tackle something that's difficult, there is a wide breadth of perspective, and people feel very passionately along that full spectrum. That is just fine. So I will acknowledge that there remains some who are concerned that we need more attention to the etiologies, and I use plural, and physiology of female sexual disorder conditions that have been the focus of today's discussion. Particularly, they expressed concern about the need to consider the natural variation in sexual desire from one person to the next, or over the course of any individual's lifetime and life experiences. Another concern that was expressed was that we always take care not to allow undue influence from the pharmaceutical industry in any discussions of any particular medical condition. And other speakers expressed concern that not enough attention has been paid to addressing treatments for women who are experiencing this condition that we discussed today, and that is actually probably a spectrum of conditions based on the kinds of things people raise their hands about in describing their own circumstances. But acknowledging all that, I'd like to try and summarize what we heard from panel one that was so eloquently expressed by the panel members. What was most striking to me was how similar the experiences described by the four panelists seemed to be to those who subsequently expressed themselves in the discussion portion following that panel. I will just recount that 75% of those who voted cited no or reduced excitement or pleasure during sexual activity. 75% expressed no or reduced non-genital sensation during sexual activity. And a large number of you as well particularly made a point to express that your major issue of concern is a lack of any desire to even contemplate sexual activity in the first place. it was interesting, and I would say that was one of the most important messages for us today, was that this complete lack of interest in sexual activity seems to be a really predominant feature that many of you shared, often to the point of working hard in your life to avoid any experience in life that may, or circumstance in your day-to-day existence that might result in pressure to engage in sexual activity. There was an expression by many of having great difficulty in becoming sexually aroused at all, with some noting that they can't reach orgasm, although most express the difficulty in becoming aroused at all as more important than any anorgasmia. Many of you expressed a point in time in your life when you recognized that suddenly something changed. For some people it was the birth of a child, for some people it was a surgical intervention. There were a variety of things expressed, but you referred to what had always been for most of your life normal, very suddenly became different, although others of you expressed that the onset of this was different. And some who spoke expressed the importance of factoring in age, the variation in that according to a particular age or period of physiologic differences in a woman's life. One of the things that I heard was that interest is different from arousal. Interest is different from the physiologic process of arousal itself. And arousal may often be generated by interest or physical stimulation, but many women experience difficulty in both of those spheres. There's like a Venn diagram where they overlap, but they are different. With regard to signs and symptoms, it was interesting when Sarah brought up the issue of, with regard to signs and symptoms, this discussion of what constitutes a satisfying sexual experience. And some of you expressed that a satisfying sexual experience is not something that's easy to measure. It means different things to different people, but you all raised your hands to indicate that having satisfying sex is different, but it is highly suggestive, it is highly different depending on the individual. Overall, I think there seemed to be a convergence on satisfaction being related to some sense of emotional positivity and sense of self-worth. To me, this is an important component. I think we're going to hear more about that tomorrow when we talk about the aspects of being able to measure sexual satisfaction in clinical studies of new drugs. It's something that that is often prominent in the scoring systems are used, so understanding what's behind those is really, really important. In terms of the effect of the disorder or variations in the disorder on people's lives and functionings, all who spoke, and this was quite striking, indicated what a profound effect this has had on your lives, beginning with stressing the effect on your sense of self-worth, but in particular your relationships. While most prominently your relationship with your spouse or significant other or sexual partner, but also how that effect impacted you beyond just that one-on-one relationship. It affected oftentimes your family lives, your relationships with your family, how you felt about yourself and your ability to do other things in your life. Some described a cycle of anxiety and disappointment associated with coping with the condition. And it was noted, and duly noted on our part, that having some input as we think about measures to assess this condition, getting input from partners of women with this disorder may be important in understanding its impact on people's lives. So to move on to panel 2 and trying to grasp current approaches to treatment, current treatments and how well they worked, I did note among the 4 panelists, there was one panelist who focused most particularly on the facilitated work on relationships and developing a sense of really understanding intimacy itself as part of addressing this disorder. about 20, and interestingly, it was 1 in 4, and also about 25% of the people in the room who had done some sort of work like that in seeking to address this disorder. So it seems like the panel was quite representative of the people in the room. The types of things that were mentioned included estrogen treatments, various forms of testosterone, a lot of emphasis and discussion on testosterone, and you really reflected a gamut of experience from topical, injected, or pellets. And what was also striking was that there was a great variation in people's experiences and success in treatment with testosterone, which does suggest that there may be different underlying etiologies of this condition that may respond differently to different hormonal interventions. Estrogens, I think that we can say that the responses were similarly varied. Several of you mentioned systemic use, noticing improvement in symptoms, including more widespread effects that go beyond just sexual function, but to other aspects of functioning in day-to-day life, particularly those of women who had experienced surgical menopause or menopause. Again, going back to the spectrum of effects, impacts that different stages in life can have on sexual functioning. Interesting that Pd5 inhibitors, the Viagras, the sildenafil, Cialis, and the other things, some have tried them. Those who mention them seem to not be particularly enamored with their effectiveness. And several of you mentioned trying a variety of over-the-counter products to try and address your concerns. Several in the room had participated in clinical trials for flibanserin, and those who did mention that they had participated indicated that they had had positive effects from that drug on sexual desire. The side effects that were mentioned were not surprising. In particular, I think I would say that the most prominent one was undesired hair growth with testosterone was the one that was mentioned most often, and a variety of other things but didn't seem to have any patterns. As far as an ideal treatment, I thought that discussion was interesting. Overall, a subjective, what most people seem to desire most was something that would bring them back to what they saw as having a healthy sexual life and desire to engage in sexual activity. It seems to be the most elusive aspect of a successful treatment from what I heard today, and probably one that needs the most focus in developing therapies. Favor was expressed by some for treatments that can be managed on an as-needed basis, but it was also important to some of you that this isn't something that comes and goes, that this sense of self-worth that one has from being able to have a sense of being a sexual being isn't something that comes and goes. It's kind of a continuum or a continuous desire to feel what one perceives as normal. So I'm not sure there is one ideal. I don't think I came away with a sense that there is one ideal, but that there is probably breadth in perspective on this issue. And I think as we proceed and encourage companies to proceed with considering therapies in this area and using and considering clinical trials for any products that are developed in this field, those are factors that we all collectively here at FDA and in academia where people and in clinical medicine and in the pharmaceutical industry are going to have to probe these issues a little bit further. So I couldn't capture absolutely everything that you expressed. I would have been up here all afternoon because that's how long it took to express these things. But I do hope that I've touched on some of the major themes. I hope that most of you are planning to be here tomorrow because the discussion will be expanded from this to taking what was said today to thinking about how to measure these things, how to take them into consideration in clinical studies, how to develop a study endpoint and measures of these factors that are so important to you as patients so that in any clinical trial we can do you justice and really assess therapies, and whether they really do achieve the things that you find most important in meeting your needs. So again, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your serious consideration of the plethora of issues that we have before us, and I hope many of you will be joining us tomorrow. Thanks very much.